Okay guys, so today I have something pretty interesting for you. This is an interview with the top 32 duelist playing White Forest with no Fiendsmith cards at the NAWCQ. This is one of the most prestigious events of the year with nearly 3,000 players. This guy has also had pretty good placements with White Forest recently as well, so he's obviously a good duelist. This deck profile is pretty unique with a bunch of cards you don't normally see in White Forest, and if you are not new to my channel, you know that I tend to stay away from the boring deck profiles on other YouTube channels or combos and spreadsheets, blah blah blah. So instead, I hope this will give you some good insight into his deck theory and deck building process. And I also have a unique combo that I have never seen before that he showed me that I'll put at the end of the video. So stick around to the end if you want to see that, and also feel free to subscribe if you like the content. The first thing I wanted to start with is, who are you? What did you place in the tournament? And why did you decide to even play White Forest to begin with?
My name is Schneiter, and I placed in the top 32. I lost my top 32 match. I chose to play White Forest because, one, I think this deck is dope. It's like one of my favorite decks of all time, and it's like super skill expressive. And it's also done really well for me this year. Like I have won two regionals, top four to another regional, and then top to YCS, and then I just topped the WCQ with it. And so I kind of wanted to finish the year out. And I mean, I'm not opposed to playing it into the next year as well, as long as it still lines up. But I wanted to finish the year out with the deck that got me a lot of those tops. And so that's why I chose White Forest. But I also thought that it was a good pick kind of into the format simply because there's a lot of Mitsurugi and Diavel's the White Witch is a powerhouse.
Okay, also just like real quick, what is the difference for people who don't know between the WCQ and any other type of tournament?
So WCQ is the end of the year tournament that you needed to get an invite for that year. And if you place within the top four, you get a an invite to the World Championship, which this year was in France. So it was super cool to be really close to obtaining that. Even though I lost in the top 32, it was still super cool to get that far.
Yeah, I also was pretty excited to see that somebody was doing well with White Forest recently because I feel like a lot of the people that picked it up initially were kind of like off of it or they didn't really believe in it. So that was cool to see, especially because like in the Discord I heard people talking about it. Like I was out and they're like somebody's like on stream or something or somebody's gonna top with White Forest.
My stream match, I got my stuff handed me on that match.
At least you got the top 32. So most people watching this probably never even placed in most tournaments.
Right.
Okay, so to set the scene for the rest of the questions here, I want to ask like some of the most basic questions that most people who are playing White Forest will probably hear people talking about. And the first thing is, why did you not play Fiendsmith, since that is like the single most popular engine that people would play in White Forest? Like, why do you go for this version?
So yeah, I get this question a lot too. Yes, Fiendsmith is strong, and yes, it has a lot of flexibility and utility, and you can access it through Droll, which is strong. Like, don't get me wrong. If your deck can play Fiendsmith, you probably should. The reason I opted not to play Fiendsmith is the extra deck utility for some of the other things I wanted, as well as, and this is maybe just me personally, I'm just tired of those cards, and so I wanted to play more of a pure White Forest, and I thought pure White Forest was also good enough in other areas that I didn't really need the Fiendsmith cards.
I also see that when you're in this 45 card list, despite not having Fiendsmith, you've made certain extremely specific choices with the non-engine. Like there's the sales ban, which people have been debating for a while, but there's also prohibition in the side deck. And then another choice that I think is not super common is droplet, just because like White Forest kind of needs to have multiple cards in hand to play. So generally speaking, like what was your approach to the non-engine with this?
So the non-engine, I have 19 non-engine slots, and yeah, you're right. They are all very specific. So sales ban, I played it in the because I was just tired of getting Joel and Lockburden. I played it in the last regional I went to, and it performed incredibly. And so I think it's a mainstay in the deck as long as Droll is any kind of relevant. And not only that, it's like such a flexible card. Like Salesman, I think is legitimately one of the best pieces of non-engine that you can run this format because it calls Droll, and then it also can call Detonator. It can call Liger Dancer, which is huge. So all and especially for our deck with Saint Azamina, you call Liger Dancer, you out the Bagooska, you win the game. Um, the Salesman is just so flexible in what it does that as long as you have your head around what's happening in the game, it can allow you to just do so much in a turn. As far as the prohibition in the side, it's I have six main deck outs to draw, and post side I have nine, which means about 70% of the time I'm going to open one post side, and so I shouldn't get drolled nearly as often. Obviously, there's still variance, but that is like the highest percentage I could get to not getting drolled. And if I open one of the six other outs to droll that, and I see a prohibition as well, I can call another hand trap that I might struggle with in that specific hand. Like for example, if my only starter is Sylvie, I can call like Imperm or something, or I can call Ash on Elzit. And then you can either send the card later and add it back with Diabel, or you can call cards like X Ryziel. That's a really strong call because then they can't sing Aggregator to negate your Diabel or Diabels or anything else that they like want to do with that card. And then it's just also really flexible. But going first as a floodgate too for your opponent's engine is like understated. That card was really good. Like I did it on stream, and it may not have mattered, but my game two I called Mitsurugi Ryziel, or not Mitsurugi Ryziel, the Ritual, Mitsurugi Ritual, just so I wouldn't have to deal with it on the follow up, um, which was cool. And as far as the droplet goes, there's five main deck because if I'm not playing Little Knight because the idea was getting to a Little Knight to out a Baguska while there's a Liger on the board is just not happening. Especially even if you do get there, you're not going to have like anything left over most of the time to make any kind of relevant push, and you're just going to die. And so I needed um, outs to a Baguska that weren't monster involved. The three droplet, two Dark Ruler actually worked really well. That was really nice all day long. Both of them came up in separate situations. I played against a Luna Light player round nine. Game one, I dropleted the Baguska, and game two, I Dark Ruler the Baguska. And from there, I was able to play the game. And then that's also a theory with the three Subversion in the side deck. I cited that in going second. Um, some number of copies. Some games it was one, some games it was two, and then against decks that were putting Baguskas out, I was citing three. That card was overperforming all day long. I remember my round 12 match. I had won game one because I won the die roll. I salesman called Droll. They ashed my Sylvie, and then I activated Elzet, went full combo. And then game two, I drolled them. It was Mitsurugi Ryziel, Fiendsmith. And so he goes and makes a Caesar Murakumo and passes. And I had opened. It was kind of a weird hand. It was a Subversion, a Philia Diabel. I had drawn Vengeance for turn, and I had a couple other cards in my hand. I had a Morian as well. But I used Subversion to just push the Caesar into the back row, and it being able to push Detonator or Caesar is also really good. So Subversion was overperforming.
Okay, so that's mostly like a lot of the non-engine choices seems pretty format specific and also makes sense. But what about also in this 45 card list? You have in addition to Morian, which generally is considered the like catch-all utility kind of Sinful Spoils name to play. You also have Susurrus and you also have Sinful Spoils of the White Forest. So do they play like a particular role in here? Like why is their inclusion? There's also I noticed no Guardian Chimera. So what was the thought process with those two cards?
So Susurrus is actually a part of the combo. It's part of every end board. I get to resolve some semblance of the combo. Same with Sinful Spoils of the White Forest. And the reason there's no Guardian Chimera is because I'm using Sinful Spoils in my combo. Because I'm always trying to end on Saint Regina Sylvia Juration, the two Diabel's monsters. And then Diabel of the White Forest, the Synchro 8, will be in the graveyard. And then at any point when I need to, I can use Susurrus to target Moa Regina. Moa Regina chains to target two cards on the field to pop. And then I bounce the Moa Regina and I summon Diabel. Another cool thing with Susurrus is it can revive the Millenniumized Restrict. So if I had activated Instant Fusion, I can revive Restrict for another good form of interaction. The other thing with that too, Saint Azamina wins the game against Vanquish Soul. Susurrus can revive it if they out it. I can just put it right back on the board. Um, for Sinful Spoils, I'm using it in my combo to fuse into the Saint Azamina, and it's I also because before this I've been on toys a lot, and so for me cutting toys, I wanted more cards that were basically free twice. And so adding the Susurrus and the Sinful Spoils were, and so between that, the Morian and the Curse, that's 5 cards. That is like a free pitch that gives you another card. Um, I was on 6 because I was on Woes for a second, but I cut it for the Instant Fusion.
And the what about like there are also a bunch of other, so you mentioned instant fusion and millennium eyes as part of the ratios for like beating droll and stuff and other generic utility, but you also have some extremely specific choices in the extra deck that are also not that common. So there's the herald tech, there's also psychic and punisher. You mentioned that Jura is part of the standard end board if you can get to it, but what about these cards? Like how often do they actually come up? Yeah, how relevant were those cards?
So Herald was actually really good. Also did this on stream, where I made a Herald because I did the field spell line, because I he Nibiru'd me for my life savings game 1, and so game 2 I went for the Herald line so I could get an Omni out. But also ended up he normal summoned Girsu and he sent Harp Horror and then it just got banished. So this card is like a weird floodgate for like Fiendsmith cards and Orcust, as well as being an Omni on top. That doesn't affect you at all because you can still pay your spells and traps as cost. But the main inclusion reason is because if I open Field Spell, I didn't want to just lose to Nibiru, and so I just added the Arclight, and you just get an Omni out before
Mm.
5 that because you can't do your Azamina stuff. So that's the reason for that one. Is it's just another good end board piece. There was some lines where if I don't get interrupted and I open like the wanted, the field spell, and like a monster tribute, I could end on. There would be I would have to choose one of the monsters to not have, but you can have like the Herald, the Sylvia, the Saint, or the Moergina plus the Diabel plus the 2 monsters plus the Susurrus. You can get like all of it, but that's like a high roll hand. But for overall, it was just for the field spell line.
Okay, and
As
then
far as pep,
oh yeah, go ahead.
oh, yeah, as far as pep goes, um, there's like 2 main interactions. If I summon Sylvie, like this is a if I out the Baguska, obviously. So like if you can't out the Baguska, you're just gonna lose to it. Which is one thing. It was like the one thing I was worried about going into the event, but it ended up not being too big of a deal. Um, but if you normal summon Sylvie and you search, and then you special summon Diabellstar, the Lunalight player is probably not going to Raigeki there. If they are, they're going to be Raigekiing just the Diabellstar. And so you can just synchro into Pep and threaten the Liger. And so in that instance, it's another out to Liger if your hand is weird or if, they just let you do it. Um, and the card is also still just really good going second. Like you can just because Diabellstar Vengeance pays half your life points. We have instant fusion, and so you can get this card really big really quickly. The other thing is Vanquish Soul. It does a lot, and that's the same thing. If I normal summon Sylvie and they let me get Diabellstar and they don't interact with me, I can put Pep on the board and immediately start like dealing with cards. Um, it's just it's like a nice going second option. It didn't come up too often for the event. I summoned a handful of times, but in testing, the theory behind it was really solid. Um, so that's the reason
Okay.
Pep was there.
And then so I have one more specific question, and then I'll get your final thoughts as we wrap up. You talk about Pep being a way to push into boards and also potentially end games. What about there's a line that comes up at least a lot in testing for me where when you go for White Witch and Vengeance, specifically after you've exhausted most of your other options, like maybe you've gone through your Elzets and Sylvies, whatever, and your last thing is White Witch into Vengeance, and the Vengeance pops whatever to go into Poplar of the White Forest to go for the Snake Eyes Doom Dragon play to make Vengeance. But I noticed that you don't have the Doom Dragon here. Did you feel like that was not a super important way to push for OTK because you had other options like Pep, or like are there other reasons that you didn't value that, or you found like OTKing was easy enough anyhow? Like what are your thoughts on that?
I think this deck's ability OTK or push damage with like Saint Azamina is so good that the Doom Dragon didn't have much value for me because you have to go into pop art and then it's just another extra deck slot for not a lot of value in my opinion, just because like if you already have Diabels plus Vengeance and you pop a card and you summon like Silvera, you're already pushing. If they had one monster or two monsters, I don't know what's on the field for the sports day. It's like kind of hard. You have to gauge. But if they had a monster like Murkuma or whatever, and you put it face down, that Silvera is doing like over 3,000 damage, and you attack for 3,000 with the other two. Like that round 12 I had when I pushed the Caesar and they had just a Murakumo, I went Diabel, Star Vengeance, and I popped the Murakumo, summoned Silvera, and that's 84 right there. And so I didn't really think that I don't, in testing, Doom Dragon's never been like amazing for me.
Okay, okay, fair enough. And then final question is, because a lot of the things that you mentioned are kind of specific to the format or your expected matchup spread, do you think that if you were to play this next format, hypothetically, what types of changes would you make in general or to your non-engine in particular, however you want to interpret that?
I'm not really too sure right now. I was pretty focused on like this format. I'm about to start looking at the future format with Yummy and all those darks coming out. I know for sure Salesman will probably stay in the deck. That card is really good at doing what I need to. And I'm also kind of like, I don't know exactly what to change yet because we're still waiting on a hypothetical ban list. And so I just don't have a good answer for you right now on that question.
So for this format, then, do you feel like this is overall the choice that you would still play exactly the same deck, or would you make any changes for this same format we're currently in?
This list felt really, really good all day. I bricked once, game one. Like my game one, I opened my hand, I'd won the die roll, and I opened like droplet, salesman, Fulos, and um, a dark ruler. I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I bricked in my top 32 match. But other than that, the hands I was opening were all really good. The only change I would maybe make is maybe adding like one more starter, like a second Stellar. It's like a 90%. I think it's 89 point something to open one of my 15 starters in my going first hand. So maybe I'd try to fit in a second Stellar to maybe help with um, that. But overall, this list felt like it was really, really tight.
Okay, that sounds good. It looks like a pretty good list to me. And thanks for the interview. Congratulations again on your placement, and hope to see you playing White Forest again next format.
Thank you.
Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed the interview. Now I'm going to show you the special combo that he gave me in a Dueling Book replay. So this is using LZ, a Spell and Trap discard, and also a blank monster. So this will show you a pretty unique ceiling and something that I have personally never played before. So check it out. Okay, so here we start with LZ. Obviously, we pitch the blank Spell and Trap, and then we are going to search for the Sylvie, normal summon Sylvie, and go for Tails. So the beginning is usually the same. Now that we have searched the Tails, we can go into Arciela and we can pitch the Tails for free because it's going to reset itself, and the Arciela is going to search for Witch of the White Forest. Now we can reset the Tails, activate Tails, search for LZ Azamina, because now we're going to go into the Azamina stuff before we Dark Lock ourselves. So obviously we're not activating the field spell yet. So yeah, now we go into Diabel Queen, and we can add back our Tails here, which you normally do, and you can also search for the Wanted. Normally in my combos, I actually search for Deception instead of Wanted, but you'll see in this combo that it doesn't actually matter that he does it this way. So here he goes for Wanted, and he searches for Diabel Star the Black Witch. Now, he's going to pitch the Tails that he added back off of Black Witch, but obviously you would normally not do this. You would normally pitch something else. I guess he's just showing that you can use that as material to discard for Black Witch, but normally here you would just discard, one of these sales bands. So anyhow, now the Black Witch is going to set the Deception, activate the Deception, tribute the blank monster from hand, which in this case is the Foolos, and search for the Hallowed Azamina. So now he can go Hallowed Azamina to go into the Murcielago. And by the way, if the opponent had Nibiru, they will often Nibiru here because this is where you could make your first Omni Negate, and you have not used Witch of the White Forest yet, which means that you could still, after Nib, go for the Diabel's the White Witch, and then that would dump the Curse, give you Philia, and then you still get Vengeance. So you still have everything, and then Vengeance could pop the Nib, etc., etc. So this is actually like fine into Nib. So anyhow, now you're going to search for the Sinful Spoils of the White Forest, and he does not play Guardian Chimera as he explained in the profile, so this is for something else, which is pretty cool. You're going to shuffle back the LZ Azamina to add the Hallowed Azamina from grave back to hand so that you can continue fusing. Now you activate Hallowed Azamina, and here he is chaining Sinful Spoils of the White Forest because he's going to be using this as material, but he doesn't want to lose it. So he chains it and he uses the Diabel Queen and the Azamina Murcielago to go into the Saint. So this requires 2 level 6 or higher monsters, 1 fusion and 1 synchro, and obviously this is a fusion and this is a synchro. So normally, like when you see people using the second Hallowed, they're going Hallowed Chain Link 1, Wanted Chain Link 2, because they haven't used Wanted yet, and so that way they get value off the Wanted by searching for the Black Witch. But in this case, he specifically wants to use Sinful Spoils of the White Forest to go into Saint, and that's sort of the reason that he doesn't play Guardian Chimera. So anyhow, now the Saint can bring out the Ilia Sylvia, so you have access to your Omni. If the opponent was holding Nib for the second Hallowed and the Nib there, it wouldn't really matter because you'd still be able to bring out the Ilia Sylvia after the Nib resolves, because it would be like Hallowed Chain Link 1, Nib Chain Link 2, so Nib wipes the board. Your Hallowed resolves, sums out the Ilia Sylvia, and then you still would go Witch into, Witch of the White Forest into Diabel's the White Witch, whatever it's called, and then dump your Curse, get your Philia, and then go into Vengeance. So, still works through Nib perfectly fine. So anyhow, we're going to shuffle back the Arciela to bring out the Sylvie, and now we can turn the Sylvie and the Black Witch into Jura, because this is a level 11, and that's also the reason that he plays Psychic and Punisher, because that's also a level 11, and you can do that to out the Liger Dancer, because it can run over it with the attack boost. Okay, so now he's going to Saint bring out Moragina. By the way, if I misspoke before, the Ilia Sylvia came off of the second Hallowed, and the Saint effect to summon is going to bring out the Moragina, so just to be clear here. So now he activates Witch of the White Forest, and he searches Diabel's the White Witch, and because he hasn't used the Moragina yet, he can bring out the Murcielago, and normally you would never do this, but as you'll see in a moment, he wants the Murcielago back on field, because he wants to be able to pop the Murcielago later. So he's going to banish the Wanted to put back a Sinful Spoils card, so in this case, it could be whatever he has in graveyard. It doesn't actually matter. Based on whatever's in your hand, you can choose what you want to put back, but it could be like a Sinful Spoils of the White Forest, for example, that he can put back, and that will allow him to trigger the Azamina Moragina to be able to pop up to 2 cards on the field. So if he pops his own Murcielago, he can use the Murcielago's secret effect, which is if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can add a Sinful Spoils spell from your deck to your hand. So yeah, he's popping his own Murcielago, and he's getting a draw, so I guess he's just drawing into a blank LZ here, and he's going to search for Susurrus or whatever it's called of the Sinful Spoils. So this is the one that targets an illusion or spellcaster monster you control. Return that face-up monster to the hand or extra deck, and then special summon an illusion or spellcaster monster from your graveyard or banishment. And then if it's sent to the graveyard to activate a monster effect, you can set it. So it's basically like a White Forest card in terms of the resetting, but it's not actually a White Forest named card. But anyhow, he's bringing back the Murcielago to pop it, because this one will be able to search for the Susurrus. Okay, so now he can finally use the White Witch, pitching the Susurrus because it will reset itself. The White Witch is going to dump the Curse after Susurrus resets itself. Curse will give you Philia, Philia will give you Vengeance. So now you can banish the Philia and the Curse to summon your Vengeance, and let's see if he goes end phase here. So he's just triggering the effect of Philia to boost by 500 to go to the end phase, and so in the end phase you will reset the Deception. So the thing about this end board here is that you have an additional layer with the Susurrus, because since this gets to bounce something to special summon illusion or spellcaster from grave or banishment, you have the Diabel Queen in the graveyard that you used before as material to go into the Saint. So it's kind of interesting keeping this in the graveyard to bring it back later, because it means whatever happens to your board, you're going to be able to make space for it. Like whatever happens, even if they go Dark Ruler as their first action, you can still pay cost to tribute Ilia Sylvia to negate something. It'll fizzle obviously, but it'll clear the body. So you're always going to be able to use the Susurrus and then bring back out your Diabel Queen. So it's a very protective type of layer, and I really like that about this combo. You also would typically have the Tails of the White Forest in your hand to send off of Diabel Queen later. He just chose to pitch that off the Black Witch, but obviously you would have pitched something else instead, and so you would still have Tails in hand. So yeah, this is a pretty decent end board. And also, another thing to notice is that when you go to use the Susurrus later, because this is a Sinful Spoils card, this will, again, give you the opportunity to use Moragina out of turn and pop 2 cards on field. So the layers in this deck are kind of like deceptively good, and I think this is a pretty decent combo. It's a very strong ceiling for White Forest, which obviously this deck is known for. So anyhow, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and again, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, or don't if you don't.